Hi, I'm Kevin Harrington, and I'm an original shark from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and I'm with Jimmy Ralph, CEO of the Board of Advisors. We're here at one of their conferences in Dallas at the Ritz-Carlton in Las Colinas. And Jimmy, hey, good to have you here today.
Good to see you, Kevin.
Hey, so we've had lots of business discussions, but we're also friends and golf buddies and all of that. But I just want to have you share a couple of things that you've been involved with over the years for the folks that are out there right now, because when we think of Board of Advisors, which is an awesome concept of members who are it help other members become more successful in their business. And so you got involved. You were one of the first companies ever, nearly 10 years ago, when Mike Calhoun first started Board of Advisors. And your company at that time was called SalesMaker. And you had developed this kind of cool technology. It was an EPM technology. And I'm not going to put any words on that because I'm going to let you explain it.
I'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, but SalesMakers that was about 10 years ago. But is there anything you want to talk about maybe prior to SalesMaker that about your entrepreneurial career? I'd love to hear something maybe before 10 years ago.
You so charismatically didn't say that whole life you had before that, right?
Exactly.
So sure. I'll do a quick hitter on that because we've got a whole bunch of entrepreneurs down here making deals and helping each other run their businesses and consulting and all that. So, I think the important part for them to know as I've become the CEO and Mike Calhoun's partner, is that I've been through all of it. So, if you and not unlike your story of deciding you wanted a nice car when you were 16, I hadn't heard that before. Of all the hours we spent together, I never heard quite that story. But when my brother and I were young teenagers, or maybe I was probably 8 or 9 when we first started it, we grew up on the South Shore of Lake Erie, which is a miserable place to be in the winter. Because the wind and the snow coming off the ice and so
brutally cold.
So we talked my grandfather into giving us a tractor that he had, that he was older and didn't use it. We talked him into giving that to us, and we fixed it up and got it to work and put a snow blade on it, a snowplow on it.
There you go.
And we'd go around and all winter. And of course we were entrepreneurs at heart because we always plowed the driveways over to the side the wind was coming from.
Yeah.
So
might have another.
Yeah, we'll be back in the morning.
Another job in the next
Exactly.
day, right? Yeah.
So, but anyhow, we made a lot of money there because most people couldn't stand to be out. If you weren't a teenager, you couldn't even go outside. So we had to get the driveways cleared, and people were willing to pay for that to get their driveway cleared so they could go in the garage, get in their car, and get out.
Yes.
And
I grew up in Ohio, so I know.
Oh, sure. You're the southern end. We're on opposite tips.
Right.
But, so anyway, so to try to not trump but match your story that I'd heard before from you about buying your own first car. I walked into the dealership when I was 16 and bought a Monte Carlo.
There you go.
For $6,400, I think it was.
Right.
And I had it in a paper bag. and the salesman's like, "What do you want, kid?" I said, "That."
That right there, right?
And so there was he said, "Well, how are you going to pay for it?" And I said, "I got it here." And he said, "I'll be right back." So that was fun because it was.
He tells that story to this day. That salesman, right?
So anyhow, so I got that whole thing. Then I did the all the classic failure entrepreneur stuff when I was a young entrepreneur. We decided, a buddy of mine and I decided one day that we could take all the ceiling tiles in restaurants and go out and sell sponsorships on them. And they could have their tile in the rest, of the local businesses, and that worked. You don't make much money, but we gave us something to do, and stuff like that. We rented
side hustles back in the day, right?
And we rented video cameras to tourists for the week, and that kind of worked. But we had no idea how to scale anything or how to capitalize anything. We were just trying to, buy groceries and beer. So anyhow, that's that story. But then
But SalesMakers became a very successful entity, along with the EPM platform that you created.
Right. Yeah. So that was evolving a little bit before I joined BA, but really took hold, and some of the folks in BA helped me shape that, and helped me refine it a little bit.
Right.
And what SalesMakers was a company that helped big companies staff mostly their retail stores, but also their direct sales forces and so
Right.
forth. So companies and big, we did, towards the middle and end, we were doing really big brand stuff with Microsoft and Duracell and the biggest and best brands in the world. We did Clearwire. We launched that Clearwire. If you remember way back, we launched the Vonage stores. If you remember the
sure.
big monster orange kiosks in the middle of the mall.
Yes.
So we did all that on an outsourced basis for Vonage. So big companies and big projects that we did turnarounds on. We helped, and then sort of became a boutique advisor to those companies like Microsoft. We helped them from we didn't go all the way to the grave. They finished that, but the cradle to midsection with their retail stores, and helped them launch
Right.
those all over the country and all over the world, actually, from an advisory consultant standpoint.
Was this just advisory at this point?
No, that actually came after the staffing. So we did a lot of staffing for Microsoft and for
Okay.
all these big companies. One time, and actually when the if you recall, during the Radio Shack Sprint deal, when Radio Shack went bankrupt, Sprint
Right.
decided they wanted to put staff in all those stores to sell Sprint, so
Correct.
they put a little booth in there,
Yes.
and we staffed those, and I think we hired 4,000, a little over 4,000 people in 12 or 15 weeks, trained them and deployed them in those stores. So that was the power of SalesMakers.
That was the
time.
power of SalesMakers. So that was you helping others utilize your platform to build their business, but then you saw how successful SalesMakers was, and then you used it to actually do Talk More Wireless for your own business.
Right,
correct?
we did.
Was that the transition?
Yeah. That was exactly the transition with the advent of EPM, which you mentioned, which
Yes.
it's really easy to explain now because the whole world's doing it now. But we basically took,
Sounds like a dance of some kind.
yeah, we took all those people and said, wait a minute, we had the classic infrastructure of regional managers, vice presidents, regional managers, district managers, local managers, and then the people that were in the stores or on the streets, selling to our customers or selling to the customers. And we said there's got to be a better way to do this. And so we created EPM, which and built the offices out and so forth, so that we could have 12 or 15 managers managing all these people instead of 3 layers of management managing them. And it was highly effective because they'd have their screens on the wall.
Right.
And this was revolutionary at the time. It had the screens on the walls and super microphones set up and cameras and all this. It was a real experience.
Yeah.
So they could manage all these people at once. They could manage 100 people in their organization, and they knew they were there.
Could they communicate?
And they could hear. They could hear the conversations with the customers and do quality assurance.
Oh, wow.
And make
Very
sure that they were
hands-on.
doing exactly hands-on, but sitting in an office in St. Petersburg instead of 50 people running around driving cars, not knowing where they were, not being able to keep track of them.
Right.
It was a big job keeping track of the people that were in charge even.
Nice.
So now they're all in one office. We can supervise it. And so that was what EPM was, which actually stimulated the massive growth at SalesMakers, because we could do things that nobody else could at a price that nobody else could. And so that really made us the king of that business and allowed us to do things that nobody else could do.
I mean, to think about that, I remember when Radio Shack, a friend of mine had operated a Radio Shack store, and they were having tough times, and then Sprint came in. And I had no idea somebody had to staff those stores. Yep. That was you.
We did it out of the Plaza building at the time in St. Petersburg.
So I mean, between that, so not only were you operating for other companies, SalesMaker and their platform, but then as you operated your own ventures, you had various businesses. Talk More Wireless was one of the ventures, and so you learned. I mean, this was where the rubber meets the road, because you're in retail stores, you're in malls, you're training salespeople. It's commerce happening right there, in direct to the consumer, right? And so you learned so much over those years. How has that helped position you for this new role now that you have as CEO of the board of advisors, BA Community?
Sure. Well, the other thing that happens down here, like when I point down here, we're at the Las Colinas Ritz-Carlton at our quarterly board of advisors meeting. So I point down here because I feel like that's my world down there right now. There's a lot of people down there to take care of and help build their businesses. But so the other thing that really qualified me for that is I built it in mid to about 2015, 2016. We decided we'd been through a lot with SalesMakers, and the problem with SalesMakers was, and you can imagine this, so we're dealing with the ginormous companies, right? The Walmarts, the Microsofts, and the track phones, and I mean, just all of those big brands, because they came to us like feeding a seagull and said, wait a minute, there's somebody that can handle the staffing and manage these people, because we hate it. So that lasts. So you ramp it up, you tear your hair out, ramp it up, get it out there, get it perfect, get it working, get it humming, and you get about 3 or 4 quarters into that, and there's some CFO looking at the P&L saying, my God, these guys are the highest cost on our P&L. What are we going to do about them? And what do they do? And it seemed like nobody could ever articulate it to have them understand that's also your payroll.
Right.
So you just jump off the page to a CFO that's trying to figure out how to make his quarter. And so consequently, those contracts would usually dwindle quickly. I mean, they'd last a year and a half, 2 years, something like that, and they'd dwindle. And so we went through a number of cycles of that. And so it's always either hyper growth or cut back, hyper growth, cut back, or replace the client. You're trying to replace the client because it's coming, and we just got to seeing it. And so we'd build all these systems, and really the best way to describe EPM, by the way, and that's what I was referring to, it was before virtual stuff was cool. Now you walk into people's office, everybody has screens up, everybody has cameras up, we have meetings on Zoom. None of that existed when we created EPM.
Before it existed. You were at the very beginning.
Even since, after COVID, people would visit our offices and they'd say, wow, you guys pivoted really well. I said, yeah, we did it about 10 years ago. So
this gives you a good kind of heads up for many of the entrepreneurs at BA. And as CEO of BA, you're dealing with many different industries and some very creative people, and you got all different types of people. But it sounds like in your business, you've dealt with the breadth of all of that as an entrepreneur. You've dealt with pretty much every kind of character that you can run into almost.
Right, because we built when we got tired of the ups and downs in the SalesMakers with the huge companies, we said, well, wait a minute, why don't we take that technology? We can put the best salespeople in the industry. They're well trained. We've got EPM. We can do this. So why aren't we doing it for ourselves?
Right.
And so consequently, between late 2016 to a few months ago, we went on an acquisition binge, a really strong one at in 2019, 21, 22, and bought about 40 companies and built it into about a 200 store chain.
That's awesome.
Using the EPM management to manage them, and they were wildly successful. We were the star of T-Mobile, and had a really good run there. But during that process, how it works, and a lot of our folks down here know how it works, and a lot are learning how it works. But you've got all the things you mentioned. You've got to capitalize the business.
Right.
You've got to have really strong financial people. Chris DePasquale is, I consider him one of the best CFOs in the world.
Yeah.
And he's been with me through all the companies. And you've got to be able to put together a business plan that is not only believable to get capital, but you can execute on it.
Right.
And then I've got Kevin Killeran, who's my COO and has been through all the companies,
Yeah.
and he knows how to execute it. So
Right.
it's just been a really good match. But the challenge is you got to get the capital, you've got to find the real estate, you've got to find the people, you've got to get the inventory, you've got to have all the logistics and reverse logistics and
Yes.
everything that goes on in that process. You've got to have the marketing, you've got to have the branding, you've got to have the right real estate, and all of the things that all of our members are dealing with, some portion of that at least,
Yeah.
every day. And I lived it in real life, fast motion form. Because
Well,
it
yeah.
all goes really fast at that when you're growing that fast and doing these acquisitions.
Yeah.
And so almost everything that happens down here, except what Stan and Rich do, who are, Rich is a patent attorney, and
Right.
and I don't do that, and Stan's a awesome attorney on every aspect, including fights. If you have to fight,
Right.
he's your fighter. So other than the legal stuff, I think, and the IT or software stuff that goes on down
Yeah.
there, I can barely get my phone turned on. But other than that, I've lived that life, and I've done those things that most of the folks down there are doing. They're raising capital, or they're looking to invest, or they're trying to improve their company, or they're trying to make
Yeah.
acquisitions, or they're trying to sell their company, or they've got problems and they need solutions. And so I think the perfect fit for me, one is I loved Board of Advisors since the beginning, and I've been to probably all but 3 meetings in 10 years.
Yeah.
And I saw the vision that we could take and just do all this good for all these entrepreneurs and investors and people seeking capital. And so what we're doing now with it is using my expertise and my team's expertise and then Mike Calhoun is he's just a beast.
Yeah.
And he's a beast of loving his members. I mean, he literally loves the members.
Absolutely.
And he's built it brick by brick. He understands the grit of building a business because he built one here.
Yeah.
I mean, we started in Tampa 10 years ago with, maybe 12 or 15 of us in a room, and half of those at least are still members.
Still
maybe
around.
more
That's
than
funny.
that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but we really didn't know what we were doing. I don't think Mike knew what he was doing.
Right.
But he's so passionate. He just creates value, and so we'd sit in a room all day.
That's
and by
why people keep coming back.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
by the end of the day, that first meeting, the second meeting, everybody's going at it late in the day, and exchanging ideas and doing
Yeah.
all that stuff. And now, multiply that times 15, and that's what's going on here.
Yeah.
So we're going back to we're doing both now. So we've just started opening X satellite. We call them X events.
Right.
That are one-day events, just like we started with in Tampa,
Mm-hmm.
and we're starting to spread those around the country. We started in L.A. We just did one in New York.
Yep.
The Contis, Jessica and Jerry, did L.A., and we're using members to do that want to create have that same entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
That they want to share. So they're doing that in L.A. Matt Chang's doing one coming up soon in Jacksonville. Matt Chang's he's so much smarter than
Yeah.
everybody. It's hard
Robotics.
for him to find anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
And then Rhonda Keels just did one in Long Island. You were there for that.
Yeah,
Actually,
that
that was
was
terrific.
awesome, yeah.
And we've got a few members here today that are rock star members that contribute value to
Yes.
BA that we met in New York. I think you saw a couple of them earlier
Yeah, I
today.
did.
So I'm going to build it, and with my C-suite team, they've got it on rails, and they're putting it on the rails so that we can scale it. We've got Mike, who's so passionate about winning for the members that he's taking care of that quality and building the right membership. And I'm responsible to take it and build it out. And our plan there, the cool thing is that we don't have bankers we need to satisfy. We don't have investors we need to satisfy.
Right.
And I don't know that I've ever been in that situation. Now, I might have had $500,000 in debt at one company a long time ago, and I might have had $30 million in debt at the last company.
Yeah.
And those are big burdens and a lot of people to answer to and a lot of people to talk to. We don't have any of that.
That's
We've
great.
got Mike, Chris, Kevin, and Jimmy, and we're going to build this as fast and responsible as we can, because the bigger we make BA, the more value comes to our membership. If you,
Right.
you know, think about it, it's just
Sure.
obvious, right? We
Absolutely.
have we've got a half a dozen people in here from LA that we met at the LA events.
Yeah.
And they're now annual members, and they're passionate and they're talented and they've got their expertises and experience. You and I were in New York, and we have a couple really strong members in here today. That's their first day
Regional
here.
growth strategy is awesome. I love that. And I wanted to finish up the point about your background and how it positions you as a really a perfect person to be the CEO of Board of Advisors. I mean, here you've had all these years building business after business, 40 acquisitions. And by the way, did you ever make one where you found out something that wasn't disclosed when you made the deal?
Just 39 of them.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, you talk about some shit hitting the fan, right?
Yeah.
So you've been through it, and that's what these folks at Board of Advisors, that's why they're here, because they need people like yourself that have been there, done that, and take the bucket list. You made that happen. So
and you have experts down here that in
Yeah.
their segment they're experts. So I made a commitment in May when we officially made this announcement. Of course, Mike and I have been working on it since the first of the year, but we officially made these changes in May, and I committed to the membership in May that when they came back here in August, it was going to be the best event they'd ever been to, and I think we pulled that off because we've got the force multiplying effect. We had one senior executive in May, and we've got 4 now. So I mean, you think about it, it's almost over one. It's unfair to the wannabes and lookalikes that are out there charging half what we charge to do a little mastermind thing. So it's almost an unfair advantage we've got. I mean, those members will come over to us at some point, or we'll acquire them or whatever. But it's really almost an unfair advantage we have, because we wanted to equip it so that we can, if we double the membership, in a year or so, that's double the value to the members.
Absolutely.
And so, but it's not if we don't do it right, and we know how to do it right. We've done it right. We've done it with the expansion, and we've got all the talents down there, right? So the talent, of course, we've got a seasoned executive team. We've got a Mike Calhoun that, unless we AI him, there's not another one in the world. He's that good at providing member value and relationship building, and and then we have 100 or 200 or 300, whatever we end up with down there, that are experts in their industry. And it's just
available to advise and help others as they join also.
So I made the commitment to the members. In next quarter, it's going to be phenomenal, and they're all saying it's really, really great. It's even better than it's ever been. And it's going to keep going that direction, because we're going to bring we're going to bring more qualified people in over and over and over.
That was my final question, because just wanted, we talked about where you've been and what's happened so far. The future of BA, are there, you talked about the satellite operations that you're doing, but anything for, what does the future hold for BA? If you could just summarize that in a couple of thoughts.
Yeah, so I mentioned that the growth, the fun part about this growth that we're doing is that we control. We don't have to do it to please a bank or an investor or anything like that. We don't have a target we have to hit.
Don't have that 90-day window that you've got to make your 1 cent off, your stock goes down 40%.
Exactly. You take all that garbage out of the way, and all we have to do is take care of this wonderful thing, and make sure that we provide good membership value, and we'll go as fast as we can go to expand that membership, as long as we keep bringing folks into the membership that provide value. It's just it's so it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Makes
It
total
just
sense.
keeps going. It's crazy. I wake up and I say, wait a minute, there's no problems here except doing that. So that's what we're focused on. So where it goes beyond that, I think we'll certainly probably double the membership over the next year, 18 months, maybe triple it. I don't know, but we don't have to do anything, which is so nice because we can do it at the right pace to keep bringing in new members that can keep contributing to the value, but we don't have to bring anybody in.
Right.
And that's a really enviable place to be in. And
you control your destiny.
And then where we go from there, you know, we don't have to plan that and then have to stick to a plan.
Right.
So we're just going to keep driving member value. We're going to keep bringing in great new members. We're going to expand to many cities across the country because those are also going to be standalone events that if somebody's a regional player, a smaller player, just getting started, and that's their budget, and they don't have time to come to Dallas for 3 or 4 days or 5 days, then they can go to the one-day event, which started this whole thing 10 years ago, which we all, you know, there's a half a dozen people in the room down there that started with me 10 years ago, and we all deemed, you know, value out of it that was worthy of being here 10 years later and coming to the Ritz-Carlton for 5 days, and you know, 4 times a year.
You can feel it's ready to just really take off. And again, I think it's great that we had a chance to sit down and share some thoughts. The folks out there right now that are interested in hearing more about BA, your story, your background. You know, you and I both, when we were 16, walked in and bought that car for cash, right? That was awesome. Give me one of those there.
and by the way, you know, we're thrilled with your involvement. I mean, you know, you were an original advisor, and you were there at the beginning.
I was there at the beginning with Mike and meeting you and hanging out with you and becoming buddies, and it's good to see your new role. I mean, I'm sure you probably sleep a little better at night now. You don't have all those bankers and all that crazy stuff going on now that you made the sale of the business. And congratulations on that, by the way, taking the chips off the table. And BA is better off to have now the skill of someone like yourself that's been in the trenches, been there, done it, built over 200 locations that you had, made 40 acquisitions, and again, not all of them go as smooth as you'd like, because I've been involved in a few of those myself. So, but thank you for being here today, and thanks for the folks out there listening. And let's give us a little sign off,
Thanks,
Jimmy.
Kevin.
Okay, thanks for being here, and thanks for being part of our program today, and getting a chance to understand Jimmy Ralph, the CEO of Board of Advisors, and where he's going from here. It's an awesome story. Thanks for listening.